It's raining outside with a bit of thunder. I just got out of the shower, and of course, in my typical fashion, I haven't made a video in 2 weeks, so let's get right into this. What is up, guys? It's me, Chief here. Welcome back to another video, and today I'm gonna have some, speedy book reviews. I know I don't really do this as much, but, I'm wanting to do more of these. Of course, in my, coming back to BookTube video, I said I was going to do a lot more book reviews, and I just feel like that I read so much that I just can't fit all the books that I read into, separate videos. I have to pick out the significant ones because there's a lot of books I just think are meh and not worth reviewing. But these ones I feel like I have significant thoughts on, and two of them I really loved. One of them I think is good but pretty overrated, and one I really didn't like. So I'm going to be reviewing 4 books today, and I don't have much time because I have to go to somewhere in about an hour and a half, so let's get into this. Alright, so let me just... I pull up my Goodreads review because it kind of gives me references as well, even though I think a lot of these books are just stuck in my mind. But I like to give what I initially thought of the book as well. So I just pulled up the review for this first book. This Is Where I Leave You by Jonathan Tropper, which is strange because, Jonathan Tropper, I read another book after reading this book by Jonathan Tropper called The Book of Joe, and I really didn't like it. I thought it was bland, just kind of like a premature version of this, but I loved this. I know some people are going to disagree with me. I mean, it has a 3.8 average on Goodreads, but I personally loved this and found it to be very connecting and just kind of not the fact that, not because, this kind of stuff happens in my family, because it doesn't, but it also just kind of, it had the voice connected to me. I felt like that the male tone of voice in this book was very realistic. It's very gritty and kind of immature at times, and I feel like that can capture some of the male point of views very well, and it sounds like our main character, Judd, who just lost his father and has to go to his family, which he's not really all that well with because they heard about him having problems with his wife who was cheating on Judd. So when he goes to the family reunion, they hear about this and they just kind of backstab him. And that's pretty much what this whole book is about. It's kind of like the family relationship as they go through a Shiva, I think is what it's called. I don't know. But This Is Where I Leave You. It has amazing writing. I love the tone of voice of Judd. I think Judd is a fantastic character to follow. I think he's just he's very relatable in terms of what he thinks instead of what he does, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I think that this book does that very well. I think Jonathan Tropper usually does that very well. That's why I've not given up on Jonathan Tropper, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Book of Joe. But Jonathan Tropper's This Is Where I Leave You, the story was fantastic, the writing was fantastic, and even though it did kind of, even though it did kind of get repetitive in its writing, it kept describing women's breasts all the time, and I'm just like, oh, okay, what? But even with its repetition in writing, I feel like that this book is very well done compared to The Book of Joe. This is just a much more developed version of that book. I think it's very well done, and just a great book. I highly recommend it. I loved it, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Alright, the next book I'm just going to try to get through as quickly as possible because this is the one I really didn't like. I almost gave this a 1 out of 5 stars, but it did have some decent parts to it, and that is We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler. The one word that can describe this book is obnoxious. Sure, it had a decent beginning. I will admit that the first, 60 pages or so, I enjoyed. I was really excited to see where it was going to go, but oh my goodness, what is that? It's a popcorn kernel. What is that doing here? This book is one of the most obnoxious books I've read all year so far. It is just stuck up, pretentious. It makes everything way too confusing. The main character, I keep forgetting this woman's name. Whenever I talk about this book, I keep forgetting. Rosemary! Why do I keep forgetting that? But Rosemary is not an interesting character. Her family members just kind of seem dysfunctional and unrealistic. And the things she goes on about. Why? There's no reason for the majority of the stuff she goes on about. And honestly, this book starts in the middle of its story. And that's already a recipe for disaster, but, you know, I'm a type of person who doesn't like to, like, give spoilers throughout the story for what's to come next. Even though, like, I like a clear narrative. I know that's very simplistic of me, but when I need a complex plot, I need a complex plot. And when I need a simple plot, I need a simple plot. This should have been a simple plot. Like, what happened? Ugh. This is just a book that got killed by its writing. I think it's horrifically written. And while it did have a decent start, and I was kind of invested in some of the characters, like there's this one woman who I don't even remember, but but the beginning of the book, Rosemary gets arrested and gets thrown in jail with this one woman. That woman is just, I think she had potential to be a great character, but overall, we are all completely beside ourselves. It just wasn't that good. I'm just gonna say that right here, right now. Alright, and then the next book is another book that I absolutely loved. So the last book I'm saving for last because I have pretty dense thoughts about this. But I read this today. I literally read it in like an hour and a half sitting. I just binged it the whole way through. And that is Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susanna Cahalan, I think is how you pronounce her name. She is a fantastic writer. I think this book is very well done. And the writing style, this is nonfiction. Let me just tell you this. This is nonfiction, but it reminds me so much of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, where it's a nonfiction book that reads completely like a novel. It has a lot of dialogue. It has like a flowing narrative like a novel should have. And honestly, it's just fantastic. It's absolutely phenomenal. Though I will admit that the third and final part was kind of slow, but you know, it's not to get into any spoiler territory, but it's after her quote-unquote month of madness, so it's just kind of like her recovering and stuff like that. Well, there you go, but I'm not going to say any more, but it gets intense. It is very wild and just incredibly written. I think Suzanne, like how Karen Joy Fowler's writing ruined We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves, I feel like the writing made this book. If it was just written like, kind of like, what's the word? Like an autobiography, which this book technically is, it would have just been, alright, whatever, but Brain on Fire instead reads like a novel, and it just makes it so much more interesting. Maybe it's because of my fascination with the art of the novel, but this book just blew me away. It was fantastic, and I have it right now sitting at a 4 out of 5 stars, but I think I may bump it up to a 4.5 out of 5 stars if this sits with me very well. It is a good book, and I highly recommend it. Alright, so my phone is going crazy, so if you hear little buzzes in the background, then that's just me, but the last book I'm going to be reviewing, these other 3 books, like I had pretty dense, I had complete thoughts on these books, but at the same time, I really want to take my time with this last one, because this is the book that everybody praised last year. This was like the #1 book of last year. It won the National Book Award. It won the Pulitzer. Everybody was praising it, and then I finally bought it. I bought it because of the hype, and I read it. And while I think it's a good book, it is not fantastic in my eyes, because, okay, I'm just gonna say it. Please don't kill me. It's Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. I know, I'm such a hipster! No, I didn't love The Underground Railroad, oh no! I sound like kind of a jerk, but, you know, I was just disappointed in this book. It wasn't really all that bad. In fact, when it had good parts, ooh, it was good. But at the same time, I had my major issues with this book. But first, I will tell you this. The good stuff in this book is really good. For example, the story itself is fascinating. And the ideas that Colson Whitehead has are just incredible. If you don't know, like, the twist with this book, well, I'm not, like, in the plot, but, like, the twists in the premise is that the Underground Railroad was, like, the escape route for the slaves in, like, the 19th century was an actual underground train. Like, an underground railroad. That is incredible. That is such an amazing thought process. And Colson Whitehead keeps throwing out these amazing ideas and amazing events at our face, and it just kind of makes you feel, oh my goodness, he's really fantastic. He has potential to be such a fantastic writer. I feel like he is going to improve immensely, so from now on, even though I'm not going to read his past stuff, I may read the next book he releases, despite me not loving this, because I see so much potential in Colson Whitehead as a writer, because of just his ideas alone. However, even though the story itself is amazing, and the writing is amazing, even with its beautiful passages, which I forgot to explain, sorry, and also it's very dense, complex ideas, it also really doesn't do well with its characters. I know these are slaves. I know I've learned the history of African Americans into time of slavery. It's horrific. But at the same time, Colson Whitehead could have made such great commentary with our main character, Cora. She just seemed kind of there. I know that sounds horrible, but she's just there. And she could have been a very thought-provoking protagonist. She could have been she could be developed a lot more. But she just kind of seems a little bit one-dimensional. And I know this gets really realistic in terms of its characters, because the slaves aren't allowed to, read and write, because otherwise they have, because otherwise they'd rebel against the owners. I understand that. But at the same time, he could have dived so much more into the psyche of Cora and Caesar and the other slaves, but it just didn't work for me. I know I sound horrible, and also there are a lot of passages that just kind of made me feel uneasy and just kind of meh. And honestly, for every great, amazing thing there was in this book, there was always a step back. And honestly, I did not love this book, where I should have, because, it was the literary event last year. It was one of the literary events last year. But yet, I just couldn't get all that into it like I did with, the Knicks or Commonwealth. This was just good. And I think that the good stuff in this book definitely outweigh its bad stuff. There's nothing horrible in this book. There's just a lot of disappointment in this book, because this could have been one of the most thought-provoking books ever, or at least of the 21st century, and it just turned out to be a good story that kind of lacked in terms of its development. So while I like this book, it's not a favorite of mine. I'm just going to say that right here, right now. So that was the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment down below what you guys thought of the books below. Hopefully I won't get killed with my thoughts on an Underground Railroad. But anyway, I'm Mega Man Chief Fan, and I'll see you later, guys.